Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the Sobriety University podcast. Really excited for this one. We have an awesome guest, a new homie of mine, and I'm really excited to have him on the channel to talk about his journey with marijuana. A lot of you guys, you're here for the weed stuff. So we have somebody that's been through the weeds and has gotten out of the weeds. So, Derek, thank you so much for coming on, man.
Yeah, dude, my pleasure. I've been looking forward to this for a long time.
Cool. Awesome. Well, yeah, guys. So today we're gonna, dive into Derek's story a bit. And before we begin, we don't want to keep you waiting too long. Feel free to post any questions or comments that you have for Derek, and we will get to those maybe midstream and just kind of do like a live Q&A. So, Derek, first question: what got you into marijuana?
I wanted to be popular. Was that the root of it?
Good
And
podcast.
I was in high school.
That's
I
great.
was 17, and yeah, like the people that I wanted to hang out with. So I thought, they all already smoked. I was like the only new one when the first time that I ever did it with this crew. And I remember just freaking out.
Okay.
Did not have a good experience. So it took me a few months before I wanted to do it again. But yeah, I mean, all the cool kids were doing it, and I'd be lying if I said anything other than like I was really wanting to be popular. Like I had just moved there from California to Colorado, so I lived in like the two major weed states, and then especially Colorado. I mean, it was getting legalized. My senior year of high school is when it got legalized, and they opened up their first store for medical, and like every 18-year-old had a medical card because you just had to say that your neck hurt and you got one. So yeah, dude, my whole school was full of stoners, and it was hard to avoid. But once I got started, and like I started smoking at lunch too before coming back to school, and each time was an adventure. And I definitely didn't say anything the remainder of the day in any of those classes, but every day we're like, let's do it again. You kind of forget why you said not to do it before when you were so high going back to school, and we're like, yeah, we can handle it this time. And yeah, dude, I just kept going from there.
Yeah, it's interesting that you said that you smoked for the first time and you didn't get high. I think people fall into one or two camps where they just get. I got blazed the
No, I
first time.
did. I got
Oh, you
way
did get.
too high. Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
I heard that wrong then. Yes, because it seems like what I've seen is people that don't get high right away, they actually don't usually continue with it. Like it's rare that they keep pushing through.
Mm.
So it sounds like though you were a natural stoner from first puff.
Yeah, there's that whole thing like you can't get high the first time. I think it's just you didn't inhale and you didn't really want to. You're just like, they're making me, and then you just like blew it out real quick, but they weren't
Okay.
taking it serious is more what I'm thinking happened. I don't think the chemical side of it really makes sense. Like, oh yeah, THC doesn't work the first time your body's exposed to it. It doesn't really make sense to me. But
And
yeah,
yeah, and
got very
so
high.
and so yeah, you said you want to be popular, man. Like I can relate to that 100%. Like in elementary school, I was not the cool kid, was not good at sports, and as you know, back in the 90s, you had to be an athlete to be a cool kid. So how did maybe marijuana help your social anxiety or help you fit in?
The crowd that I got into, we were, there's a few stoner crews because I mean, Colorado, like there were so many, like even like the kids that weren't like the quote unquote cool kids smoked weed sometimes. But yeah, just the people that I clicked with, and I still talk to them today too. So it's not like the friendship was completely built on marijuana.
Hmm.
But yeah, I just got along with them well, and that was just always what we did. And really like every weekend was just like, we get out of school on Friday, we're like, woo, like, and then we just smoke, and then we'd be like, all right, we're too high to go in anywhere and we don't have any money. So we'll just like stay in the car, and all of our parents think we're at a movie right now, and let's tell them we're at another movie. Like we just do nothing, So it definitely was frustrating. Like when you're a stoner before anyone even has a house, then you're just sitting in a car somewhere or sitting in a park. So it's pretty uneventful.
Yeah, Mom, we're seeing 7 movies tonight, so just
Yeah.
cut us some slack.
How were they? Good.
So good.
Yeah. I'd like be looking up online, like what happens.
So cool. So we kind of touched on that a bit. Let's move forward. So after high school, how did your weed use progress?
I really never stopped. So once I moved out, like right at 18, then my roommate was one of the people who had a med card. He was always re-upping. He was, distributing it too. So like it was always right there. Like, and then my other roommate smoked as well. So yeah, it was always around. And then all of my friends in college smoked all the time too. And once I got out of my parents' house and it was just like, okay, like I'm waking up in my own apartment. Then I started getting into wake and baking and just like, all right, I'll just go to high to every class, even though I would just sit there and just like not pay attention. Like for whatever reason, I would just wake up and I'd be like, should I get high for class today? And I'm like, yeah, like
Yeah.
why not?
Of course.
And yeah, I would just, go to college and do that. And then you get to go drinking on the weekends. And yeah, I mean, I had a typical college experience with the partying and everything, but I definitely smoked weed throughout all of the academic parts as well. And then you just get so used to being high that you become a functional stoner.
Mm.
And then I got into a sales job, which was my first taste of entrepreneurship when I was 21. And I did really well with it, despite being a stoner the whole time. And like I was still super motivated. I've always had ADHD, so
Mm.
I think that's why weed worked really well for me. It was a good escape from being just so hyperactive and just calming myself down. I'm very extroverted, so it was a way to make myself more introverted.
Mm.
And it did really work well with my lifestyle until I had other things going on that could be a bigger purpose. Like I would go to my sales appointments high sometimes, and I'd be like, that was not a good idea. I'd get out of there and like be like, I probably could have sold him something if I was a little bit sharper. And then after a few years, like 4 or 5, you finally get to the point where you said the sales approach so many times that you're like, now it can be a little bit more high and get
Mm.
away with it. So I was always just trying to get away with it, man.
Okay.
I never saw it as a problem. I always just saw it as, okay, let's smoke a little less next time, or make sure you have your last hit be an hour 45 before the appointment rather than an hour and a half. Yeah,
Mm.
that's what I'll do. Like I never addressed the problem as like stop smoking weed. And if someone brought it up to me, dude, I was just like not having it. So I never even considered getting rid of it because I really did enjoy it so much. And I'm not going to say that today, like if I would smoke right now, apart from the guilt I would feel from breaking my streak and just knowing that I declared that that's not part of my life, I know I could enjoy it. So that was a large part of getting rid of it. I had to be like, look, I do love it. But it's just not what I can do anymore. It wasn't me like, you know what, screw this stuff, because that doesn't last. You have to kind of get on actual terms with it. Like, no, it was really fun and I would still enjoy it today, but you see what you're really trading off.
Mm.
And yeah, so I got that sales job and I still would like do all like 5 or 6 appointments in a day, come home, smoke, wake up, make a bunch of phone calls, do a bunch of appointments, and take little hits like along the way. I love that I was my own boss because it was I was an independent contractor and it was work as much or as little as you want to. So I couldn't get fired. As long as I'm in sales, I can't get fired. There's no drug test either. They're not going to fire me, even if I would fail. And all the other salesmen smoke too. So I found a job that you could get away with it, right? Because I remember when I graduated college and I was like, take a drug test. I was like, I don't care what you pay me. Like if you were going to monitor my weed consumption, like I'm staying in sales. So a lot of like my entrepreneurship journey, like initially was, I didn't even see these other jobs as an option because I mean, I did the job interviews with fake pee strapped to my leg,
Wow.
but yeah, I was like, I'm not going clean for 30 to 40 days to take your test or whatever. So yeah, I've been defiant for most of my life. I've always been wanting to be in control of everything, which is a pro and a con.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's kind of my personality with weed.
A really important point you touched on was that you did admit you loved it, and I think that's really important because, like you said, you're not like weed's the enemy, weed's evil. You're just like, we had a great relationship, Mary Jane and I. We had a lot of fun, but we're growing apart. It's no longer
Yeah.
healthy, and I think that's really important for people that are trying to quit to acknowledge that and just to be like, not beat yourself up for loving weed and for having loved weed. I as well loved weed. It expanded my consciousness. It brought me closer to people. But just as you said, at one point, it stopped doing that. And that when it was like, okay, this is a red flag. So when was that moment for you? Sounds like you're being very successful.
Yeah.
Good job.
It's funny because I always joked with my buddy when we were in sales and we were smoking, and I was still like, I'm never quitting. I'll be smoking till the day I die. I had that mentality. I was like, if I ever do quit, I bet it will be something like this. Like, I absolutely crushed it when I smoked weed, but then I just freaking slayed it when I stopped. Like, I was like, I'm always like pretty damn good. But I knew like I would do a lot of public speaking with this sales job. And if I would try to do practice runs high, I couldn't do it. So I could always see it's not a performance enhancing drug. It is certainly not helping. I am just making it work anyways. And maybe I would do like Adderall or lots of caffeine, just really, Ritalin, like whatever, just to always counteract the weed. And yeah, but there's a lot of times where I was like, I need to prepare for my speech, but I'm a little too high right now. So I'm going to wait an hour and a half and drink this coffee. And there was a lot of time wasted where I was like waiting for myself to come down so that I could do other things. But ultimately, when I said I actually do need to quit, the first time was in 2020.
Okay.
And I was struggling to get over a breakup. And I had broken up with her actually, but after like 6 months after you break up with someone is that point where you say, wait, what did I not like about them? and especially in 2020, dude, like when everyone's lonely. So I was like, I started realizing like what parts of the relationship I had fault in. And she was someone who was very quirky, high energy, and that gets along with me very well. However, if I'm high, no, it doesn't. Because when you're high at the grocery store, you're like, everyone knows I'm high here. Like, don't draw attention to us, right? But then she would be like the loudest person in the grocery store, like the loudest person everywhere we went.
Okay.
And when I was sober, I was fine with it. And then when I was high, I was like, chill out. Like, I'm trying to not draw attention to me right now. I'm high right now, right? So I realized that I got really annoyed with her. And that was ultimately why I ended the relationship. Like, she just annoyed me a lot. And that was a lot because of the weed I smoked. And even my parents too, I realized like little things they do, I'd be like, it would annoy me more than it should, right? Like, I'd get annoyed by things hanging out with them, but I don't get annoyed by anymore. And I really realized that it makes you very irritable when other people around you aren't acting in the way that you want them to, but they're not high, so they're not matching your energy, right? If you go out with your buddies and you're all high, you're all kind of like, let's just all stick to ourselves, and you kind of get it, and you're not like trying to communicate outside of your group that much. But I was just always high, right? And the beginning of the relationship, when you start dating someone, even if you are a pot addict, you're not smoking on those dates, right? You're just like, you're usually putting it away unless they smoke too. You're like, all right, cool. Like, yeah, I'm meeting up with this girl. I'm not going to be high, right? So like for the first like few months, I was not high. And then eventually I was like, okay, cool. Now that we're dating, I get high all the time, by the way, so, and she said she was cool with it. Like, I think a lot of girls say they're cool with it until the little things start to come up where they're like one time I was like smoking a J on the way to McDonald's, and then we almost got pulled over. And that made her so mad because she was like, you almost got me like in trouble with the law, right? With this situation. So like we started running into things like that, where I'd be like, no, I'm not going to give the car to the valet person. I just hotboxed it in here. Like just little things just start to add up. And you just realize that you really do make it an inconvenience on someone else. I've only dated one girl that also was a pothead, and it was fun. But also at the same time, they had some issues too, like I did, that I had to address. So it's not that everyone who smokes weed all the time, it has internal issues, but it is likely that there is some reason that we are using some form of escapism all the time. So we'll talk about that. But ultimately, I realized the girls that I do want to date, although I don't have a problem with stoner girls, like it's rare that very few of the girls that I'm attracted to are stoner girls at the end of the day. So I was like, all the girls that I actually am attracted to this is not helping me. So that was the first time in 2020, and I made it 50 days without any, and I was so depressed by the end of that. And then I
Mm.
picked it back up, and then I smoked every day, all day for 2.5 years after that until the next time. But that was the first time.
Okay. Man, a lot of good stuff there. One thing that really stood out is that you said you started to own your part, and that just shows a lot of maturity, right? You're like, okay, I was at fault in some of these things, and I think that does take a level of maturity and just consciousness to realize that, hey, like it's not all them. And I think that's a big issue a lot of people have, that when they get into recovery, not you guys, of course, but other people, right? And you see it a lot in support groups, right? They go in and they're just mad at the world, and hey, it's a phase I think a lot of people go through, so there's no judgment. At some point though, they realize, okay, like I'm just holding this hot coal, like, and everyone else, like, expecting everyone else to get burned, and I'm just like, my hands on fire.
Yeah.
Like, you have to learn how to put out that coal, and that often comes from looking inside and doing the inner work. So really cool that you did that. And yeah, I'm interested. Like you said, you took that 2 months off, and you were super depressed. Like, why do you think you were depressed in that period?
Part of it was, I won't say like the COVID itself, but just the fact that like a lot of things were closed down and like life was limited. And it's like, okay, well, I can play Xbox and watch movies still, but no weed. So a lot of like the ideal weed things was what I could do. And I was not used to that. But I had just quit my sales job to become a full-time entrepreneur. So I
Mm,
had finally gotten enough income from the online endeavors that I was doing. One of them I'm not even doing anymore. So like one of them was like a failing endeavor, but I
mm,
didn't know yet. And I was not making much money.
right.
Really, like 2020, the financial aid, like I needed that at that time. Like I was mostly broke, coupled with this, coupled with me realizing, damn, should I have broken up with her or not? So it was just kind of like the trifecta of all of that. Although I will say, each of the three times that I quit weed and went a substantial level in the process, all did have that period where I felt chemically depressed, like for no reason. Anhedonia is, I believe, what it's commonly
Mm,
referred to, just a loss of joy. And it's weird because you're
yeah.
like, even this third time where I was like, okay, like I don't have nearly as much of a money issue as the other times, and like things are good, and I've got this and this to look forward to, but like I am not as happy as I should be about it. I
Mm,
really did feel a bit chemical depressed.
yeah.
But having financial troubles, that's always the biggest stressor, and it's difficult to, because now you can't like treat yourself to like a nice lunch to get over your weed addiction. So when you've got that going on top of it, it does make it really difficult. But at the same time, the weed could also be the thing that is giving you the financial troubles. Weed's not that expensive. It does cost money, and it also costs the time going there, but then it costs the speed that you lose when you're high, because it's definitely not a performance enhancing drug. So now you're slower, and then uh, yeah, you don't always see the right solution. So just with the speed, the money, and then the time that you're wasting on it, it's making it take longer to get out of your financial struggle, even though you might feel better about it while it's happening.
Mm,
You might be like, oh
yeah.
well, like I'm high, I'll figure it out. Like you can treat it uh, a little bit more happy go lucky is the only benefit.
Totally. And as you guys know, when you smoke, it suppresses that pain in the moment, but the pain's right there when the high wears off. And there's a reason why NFL players use it to numb the pain they get from running 100 miles an hour into each other for 60 minutes. Like, yeah, it suppresses the pain, the physical pain, emotional pain, etc. Uh, I really think it's interesting too that you talked about the anhedonia. And just from listening to what you said, it makes a lot of sense, right? Like, not only were you inside and you're an extrovert, so you couldn't really go and socialize, you were just kind of zapping your dopamine with Netflix and video games, and you were coming off the weed. So that's just a concoction of just misery. Like, that sounds like hell. Like, I know today, like, even like having been sober for a while, if I go and watch TV for too long, I get my dopamine is depleted. So doing that 24/7, I imagine, yeah, that was just just a nightmare.
And what I was working on at that time was two projects. One was an invention that never saw the light of day and never sold
Mhm.
anything. So like the thing I was working on was doomed to fail. And then the other thing was a webinar that I was going to run $10,000 worth of Facebook ads to before realizing that also that was not going to work. So like both of my like entrepreneurial endeavors were not good. Like, and that's all I had. I already quit my sales job. I cut the cord. I was like, I can do this. I'm making enough to get by, but I just need to like give this my full-time energy. But yeah, both of those were failures, which were like necessary failures. But I mean, it definitely doesn't help to be, fiending for that extra sale. Like I would sell
Yeah.
some of my program to make between 1 and like 3,000 a month is usually what I was
Okay.
making. So I was like barely making expenses
Okay.
each
Yeah.
month.
Yeah, guys, if you're out there and you're trying to get into entrepreneurship, and this isn't to discourage you, but know like there will be failures. And so I totally empathize, Derek. Like, you quit your the thing that was working for a thing that, your passion, your dream, and it didn't pan out. And I can relate to that because I dropped out of school 3 times to pursue music. I spent 9 years DJing, producing music, and I made absolutely $0 from it.
Oh, damn.
And it was only about, what is it? A year ago, a year and a half ago, where I said, okay, enough's enough. Like, I got to do something else. I got to find another way to survive because otherwise I'm going to be 45 years old in my studio apartment trying to make it to ultra. And it was just like, I just saw the future. I'm like, oh crap. So I did pivot, and I pivoted and I failed. I got into real estate. I sold 0 houses. I got and I started the YouTube. I started a couple other things, and those didn't work. So it's just, it's part of the journey. And so today it sounds like you're at a much better place with all that. So can you, catch us up to speed on what's going on in your life and how things have progressed?
Yeah. So then 2.5 years later, I hit the wall again. And it was actually with another girl situation where I was like, the weed did not help me there. And I can see that this is a lesson that will keep repeating. Where as much as I like, once I got to, like the reason why I relapsed after day 50 and just like stuck with it is I was like, I'm making a weed decision about this girl that is not even in my life anymore.
Mm,
And I wasn't really preparing myself for like, just know when the next girl comes, you can't just be like, okay, I got to quit weed. Like right then. Right. Like you have to be
mm,
out of it. Like I have to be ready for that. And I went through this situation with someone else and I was like, that might have been the difference maker. And I
mm.
don't think this person was right for me anyways, but it was just enough that I could see that the universe was showing me you need to have this out before these situations come up. And I started and I got on like a streak of like 65. And this one was still very difficult because after 2.5 years, all day, every day use, I still had like quite a bit of it in my system.
Okay.
And I went through the same kind of phases every time. So I'll say how my phases went because hopefully you guys can relate to this. And if you know what to expect, then it makes it a bit easier. The first week I found very easy on all 3 times because I was like, you know what, fuck this, and then you have like that behind you. And that first week you have, I think what's called the pink cloud effect. Like
Yeah.
you realize all this extra energy and you're doing all these things in your life and you have all this extra focus and you can juxtapose it to the week before and it's really clear to you of the benefit. And then the second week and the third week each time was just like so much boredom. It was like, okay, I've been working nonstop for 7 to 10 days here and now I'm running out of steam a little bit. I'll keep going, but you feel like you don't have that break that you're used to at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And it feels like even if you do take the break, your mind didn't register it as the break because you're used to like the dissociative escapism break that you're just like, I'm just like so high playing video games. And like you play video games and you play for like half an hour and you're like, this isn't that fun. And you're
Yeah.
like, I used to play for 2 hours and it was so fun. And now I'm like, I can't play this that long. Like in movie, like you have to get used to doing all these other things, not high all of a sudden. And
Lovely.
it makes it seem like that there's not like the work, you're more focused. So you're loving it. But then as you're starting to run out of energy from working yourself to the bone from the first week or two, then you start realizing like, where's my break? And like I said, like you could take it, like unless you go take a vacation or something. I think that would actually be beneficial because even though it seems like, well, if I'm on a beach in Mexico, I should smoke weed. actually, like, you forget about weed a lot of times. Like if you go to Mexico and or to another country and you've got a full itinerary, that you've got enough going on to process, but it felt like I just couldn't get a break. So
Okay.
weeks 2 and 3, all 3 times was very difficult for me. And then I started to kind of come out of it. But then day 30 to 50, which is when I contacted you this last time, because I was like, the last 2 times, this is like the range that I can't make it past. And by the way, the second time I was doing CBD products.
Okay.
And if you do a heavy dose of CBD, it is like THC.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not cheating. Like I was like, and now I'm just like doing like 100 milligrams of CBD each, like every other night is fine. Okay, well, I'll do like tonight as well. Like you really get this perspective. Sometimes like the relapses are, I won't say necessary, because I think I could, like, you can get past it, but they give you this perspective of what kind of weed user you are. And Joel and I have talked about this before. And if I have it as something that's possible that I could do, then I do it. Like even my podcast, I've been doing a podcast for 5 years. I'm on episode 370. A lot of my interviews, dude, I like smoked half hour before it or something. Like I'm just like doing these interviews and I watch them later. I'm like, oh, cool. Like that was totally acceptable. But I definitely could have done a better job. I was just work. But yeah, so I was doing like CBD the second time around. This third time is when I did no CBD, and there was 3 keys to it for this third time where I feel like I'm actually out of it. The first one was that I found out what the root of my problem was that was making me feel like I needed to always escape with weed. And the second one was that I accepted that this is going to suck. I love weed. I will miss it so much, and this is gonna suck. There's going to be that like up to day 60, like some of those days in there are really going to suck. And then the third one was that those days that did suck, I didn't do anything about it. I just sat with it, because the other times I was like, I'm going to get a cigar. Like I'm going to do a little Adderall. I'm going to drink, I guess. I'm going to just do something. And or like CBD, or like I had like CBD weed. I'm like, I'm gonna smoke the CBD weed. And now I'm like real close to it. Right. And there's probably some resin in the bowl that I'm hitting. And even there's like 2 times within that second time that I was at my buddy's house and like drinking. And I took like, I'm like, I'm going to take the smallest rip, and it still was just like, it really got the voice going again. And I like woke up like ready to do it. And between the second and third time, there was only 2 weeks actually, because I was like, okay, let me try this again. I'm going to try moderation. I tried the moderation phase, and I was just like, every day, all day. Like I was like, damn, I can't do this. Like I wish, like my friends will be like, why don't you just moderate? Why don't you just do it on Fridays? Why don't you just do it at night? How about just 420? And I'm like, if it's an option, I will always convince myself of why I can do it, because I'm working at home on the computer with no boss, and I'll put in this 8 to 10 hour day. Then I get to the end, and then I'm like, okay, it's time for a break. And then like, it's just, if it's an option, like I know myself, I'll talk myself into it. So I just had to accept that. But I do want to address that first point that I said, where I had to figure out what was at the root of why I was doing this. And this is going to be a different answer for everyone. This is probably where the like get a therapist and work out your childhood trauma comes out. But I'll tell you what it was for me, because I think that this is a good starting place for a lot of people. And it was figuring out my attachment style. Have you ever heard of this before, Joel?
I have. Yep.
So there's 4 attachment styles, and basically one of them secure. And then the other ones are basically somewhere on the spectrum of like an anxious attachment or an avoidant attachment. And anxious it's everything in life. I was anxiously attached to all my business goals. Like they have to happen. Like I have to have the control. I have to work for myself. I have to be an entrepreneur, and I have to do this. And like relationships, right? Like you can get clingy too fast. You can try to move forward into making it a relationship too fast.
Oh yeah.
And that was more the side that I was on. And then like avoidant is like you might quit goals because you're like I might fail this goal, so let me just quit it now. So that I don't have to endure the failure. I'll just quit early, or let's just I'm starting to get really close to this person. Let me just leave them now because everyone leaves me. So it's really either side of the spectrum. But I realized that I was anxiously attached to life. And then I realized that weed was a huge catalyst to that. And I realized that at the root of all of my anxiety and depression was was attachment was my issue. And then I realized how much weed, like all the cons became clear to me. Like I was like the pros, yeah, it's fun. I get to get away with it. I'm pretty good still on the mic because I'm, all those things that I told myself. All of a sudden I was like, dude, this is really like this is the root of it. Because when you see the problem is like weed is my problem. It's what's making you do the weed all the time that's more the problem. And if you just keep attacking weed, then that's why I kept like coming back to it, because you kind of forget why. You're like, is it really that bad? Because it's not that bad, right? It's not that bad of a drug. You don't wake up hungover. You're fine. You can just do a cup of coffee. You can wait an hour and a half. Like it's not that bad, but it's like those kind of things that can really just like the compounding effect over your life is humongous. So that was it for me, for like finding like the root of the issue that was really, really key for me to see the problem for what it was.
Nice. That's very nice, man. Yeah. I hear that a lot, right? It's not heroin, it's not meth, like it's just weed. But like you said, it's like a slow burn, and pun intended. I have a video, it's called The Death by a Thousand Cuts. And it just talks about how it just, it's over time, you just get a little sliver. They do that for torture, actually. This got dark real quick, but they do that for torture in the old days of like the Chinese war and stuff. Like they basically would just continually cut people with just very, very small until they died and bled out, which is
Give them
crazy.
hits of weed until
Yeah.
they.
What a terrible way to die, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, going back to what you talked about, attachment. Yeah, that's fantastic, dude. And we're going to be doing a lot more content on codependency, on attachment, on all that stuff. So we'd definitely like to have some more conversations with you on that, Derek. I'm the same as you. I have that anxious attachment. It's played I would say it's made relationships a big struggle, and I've really had to work to overcome that. For me, it was because of an adoption. So I got, taken away from a, primary caregiver so young, and I can't even remember it. So it's very hard to get to the root to. For me, it's very hard to say goodbye. Like I struggle with just like saying peace out, I'll see you next time. Like part of me is like, what if I don't? And it's like, all right. Like, so I got to work on that. But coming full circle here, yeah, there's a really good book on that can maybe help you guys out if you're struggling with that. It's called Attached by Amir Levine. I read it a little while ago, and it really kind of talks more deep into what Derek just talked about, right? About the different attachment styles, how to overcome them, where you might fall in, and why you might behave in certain ways. So definitely check that book out. We are not sponsored. However, it's a great book, and we definitely advise that. And so, yeah, man, that's awesome. You found the root. I think you're spot on. Like a lot of people, they try to quit and they don't know the root, so they're continually suffering. And you really do have to get to the root of why you started smoking in the first place. So, besides that attachment, any other reasons why you think you like weed so much?
Uh, that's a good question. I don't know, like, so why I like weed so much. I mean, it just makes everything more fun. And I was really the funny guy. I've always been the funny guy my whole life, and that was actually something I gave up with weed a
Wow.
lot. I'm so much more serious now. You go through life just finding the funny in everything, and I'll hang out with people who are high now, and I'm not, and you can just tell like their barrier for what's funny is just so much lower. And it was annoying, like when I'd be high around people that were sober, like I'd find funny in so many things. And when I was in my 20s, it was so much more acceptable. In college, it was just always fine to be making jokes. Like everyone was fine with it. And then you kind of hit a point where the joke better be damn good or you don't say it, is kind of what I've been finding in my 30s. So I largely gave up being the funny guy. I think if I was a comedian as my career path, like the weed would help. Like I think maybe if you're a comedian, even though like I'd be freaking terrified of going on stage high for sure, doing a comedy bit, but I think that could help their mind like get on the right track of just seeing the parody of everything in life.
Right.
Um,
I mean, look at Seth Rogen, Joe Rogan. They're
yeah,
always stoned and they're always
yeah.
jokes, for sure. I
Joe
think
Rogan would probably be really serious if you didn't smoke weed
Well,
sometimes.
It was funny from since I've
Okay.
known you, I actually think you're a pretty funny guy. So I think it's there. Maybe you just can't see it
Thank
yet.
you. It's still there, but dude, I was just like actively like always looking for the joke.
Uh-huh.
Now I just kind of let it come. But yeah, so I won't. Yeah, I'm just not as much like the class clown, like the obvious, like
Yeah.
trying to get attention for being funny. Mostly because I didn't have like I always say like whatever joke comes to my mind because I'm like that is too funny not to say. But with weed, it would just like it would like the thoughts would just always it would be throwing me jokes all the time. Like weed would just make my mind throw me jokes all the time. I was like, I have to say that. So that's kind of what it did. And then like now, like there's just not as many thoughts going in that direction.
Mm, mhm.
I'm just a more serious individual overall, which is just kind of what I need to be at this point in life.
Yeah.
Joel, the only other thing too that I've got like a lot of little tips for just making it easier. If you think
Yeah.
that would be good to touch on.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we'll transition to that in just a sec here. Uh the humor, yes, it is. I was the same as you, man. Just always cracking jokes is how I got attention. So it sounds to me like you're maturing. The fact that you don't need to crack every joke, I think that's a good thing, man. That you're being more calibrated with your shots. And I'm the same. Like, if something's funny, like, dude, I freaking gotta, crack wise. And like the
Yeah.
first time we met, like so like I like to I'll be honest, like when I like to fuck with people and I'm very sarcastic. And Derek gave me the same humor that I give others, like on our first meeting, and I couldn't catch it because I'm just so used to being the one delivering it. And I'm like, damn, you got me. So yeah.
I showed up. He's like, "How you doing?" I'm like, "I'm high as fuck right now." And he's like, "Okay." So he dressed it really well. He was like ready to talk me through it, and I was like, "No, I'm kidding."
I was like, compassion, we're gonna work through this. I said, no, I'm fucking, which was a big relief for
What you
me.
trained for, Joel? You got this.
You pussy. So yeah, that's a great transition. Speaking of, let's go into some tips for the people that are trying to quit weed.
So it is difficult to say that you can do this without fitness in some way, and find whatever you like the most. Like, don't make this harder than it has to be. But if you are ever really wanting to smoke, there's nothing that will make you actually not want to smoke more so than getting in touch with your lungs in some way.
Mm,
So if you do like a lot of push-ups, that can get cardio activated. But if you do like 10 pull-ups, if you get a pull-up bar, if you do 10 pull-ups, that gets you panting. And you will not want to smoke something like the act of just like the smoke
mm,
itself. Maybe you'll still like kind of want the high in a way, but you'll have a bit of endorphins going. And then now just the fact that you got your lungs to a point of panting will make you not want smoke. So I've been doing a lot of running. It's not my favorite thing. I did like a 1.6 mile run today. I was so bored by the end of it. Like, it's not my favorite thing. So you got to do what you like. Like even a half-mile run. I know people always talk about like, go run a couple miles. It's like, dude, a half mile is like
couple miles, bro, please.
that mile is like pretty good. So do what you like at the gym. But I learned that if I ever felt depressed, really missing weed, bored, and
Mhm.
also not able to take action in my business, I was just like not feeling it. Right.
Yeah.
I'd say there's like one of three things going on. Either I haven't ate today, which was never the issue for me, but I know that can be a common one if
Yep.
you're used to eating on weed and like now you don't have as much of an appetite. So to that, I would say get meal replacement shakes so
Mm,
that you can at least just chug a chocolate shake and now at least get like 40 grams of protein and like all your base. So that's not an issue. And then the second one would be that I didn't sleep the night before. And this is something that I never realized on weed, because if you got
okay.
4 hours of sleep and then you're high, and you're like, "Oh man, I'm so high." Like, but you're actually really tired too. And then you don't even realize it because you're just like, "Dang, like I guess I'm just crazy high." So like I never realized how bad lack of sleep was affecting me until I had that removed. And then I was like, "Why am I tired? It must be the sleep." Otherwise, I was like, "It must be the weed." Like I was just always blaming it on the weed. So
Yeah.
then I started to see like, dude, like when I get 7 or more hours versus less, like I can control my mood so much better.
Yeah.
So you really got to figure out some sleep strategies. And really, I like to, all these little things, the reason why it's so helpful is because they all feel like you're doing something. And that's partly what you miss with the weed. It's not just the weed itself, but it's just like, what do I do? So I'd be like, I'm going to do a magnesium tonight. I'm going to do a melatonin. I'm going to turn on my red LED lights and prepare me for bed. I'm going to like put on my blue light glasses before bed. Like all these little things. I'm like, oh yeah. And then I take a hot bath before bed to make my body more like prone to sleep well. So like you can make a game and like do things like that are healthy. Like I'm going to do a B12 today, right? Omega-3. Like you want to give yourself things like that, like pre-workout or, that's not the healthiest thing, but whatever. Like I don't think you should try to get rid of every addiction at once. I think that's pretty difficult.
Yeah.
So like, and then coffee was a lifesaver, but all those things like, so sleep would be the other thing. And the third one is I haven't worked out today. So I learned to just say like, if I haven't worked out today, then I'm not going to trust my thought process right now. And I'm going to try to get myself to go work out and just go do something. And then I'm going to come back and consult this, because I remember there's a time that I was like on like day 15 one time, and I was like calling through my friends, right? Like this is the other, like you might use your friends as therapists for a bit. And I was just like talking to my buddy, and he's having a great day. And I'm like, I'm not, bro. But he's like, what's going on? I'm like, I don't, like, everything's fine, but like, I just don't feel good. And then I did, it was like an incline. It's like 200 steps in Castle Rock, Colorado. And I did that a few times, and I got to the end of it and I was like, I'm actually fine. Like there's something about like getting your endorphins going, getting in touch with your lungs. And it's like, you could be like 15 minutes away from feeling fine at any time if you just make yourself do the fitness. And it's really annoying because you'll be in this depressed state. You don't want to do anything. The motivation's low. Maybe you got no sleep. Maybe you're hungry. Like all three are going on, and you just have to make yourself just go do some kind of physical activity and then get back to it. And that's what I was saying, like that this last time was like, I needed to get through those depressed states. So, and sometimes you would do that and you'd still kind of feel it. And I would be like, the way that I looked at it is I was like, this is the addiction leaving my body. When I really felt like just like there's no way out of just feeling depressed today. Like I'm not excited about anything that's happening, and I'm not quite tired yet, and I already worked out today, and I ate, like there's nothing I could do. Like I could go like in that phase, you're like, I could go take a hit of weed, that would work. But like you're like, I can't do that. Then I'm like, okay, what if I did alcohol? Like no, like don't do, like just deal with it. Like, and I had probably like 6 or 8 days where I just had to be like, just deal with it. But I as best as I could, try to see it as like these are the days that make it go away. Like these are the days where my body's actually like flushing it out if I can get through it.
Man, I love those tips, dude. That's fantastic. Those are some nuggets right there. Those are some big nugs. And I talk a lot about too, like the importance of exercise for sure. So I agree with you 100%. Like getting that natural high, right? Like, because we still want to get high. We're we're addicts. We like to, or whatever, however you want to call it. We like to get high off something. So it might as well be something that's going to nourish us and replenish us. Yesterday, for example, and I still take these tips today. So I appreciate you reminding me too. Yesterday, I didn't get much sleep either. So it's funny, like you're saying this, I'm like, yeah, this was me yesterday. I had like 6.5, 7 hours of sleep. So I had that like drunk feeling. I don't know if you guys know, but when you're in lack of sleep, it's the same effect of being drunk. So I noticed that in the last probably 3 years, that when I don't get that 7, 8 hours, but even seven's too low now, like I feel like drunk. So I was feeling drunk yesterday. My mood wasn't super great. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go play hoops at the end of the day, right? I'm like, I really don't want to go move, but I'll probably feel better if I do it. Had a blast, like was balling, endorphins were going, I was just sweating. And then afterwards, the guys I was hooping with were like, dude, let's go get a lift in. So, because the basketball gyms were right next to the weights. And so we just like did like I don't know, an hour just rage session of lifting. And like, I felt so great after. And all the depression I had, all the anxiety was gone. I felt connected again, connected to people, connected to myself. And so it was just like a good lesson. Like, yeah, dude, like if you can, I like just how you said it. I was 15 minutes away from being happy. And in that decision, I decided to go chase happiness instead of, go be in my misery, in the pity pot, as they call it. So those are great. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and anything else, man? Dude, keep it rolling. This is This is gold.
Yeah, I did prepare a bit for this.
Cool.
So that's why I've got like these concrete tips. And I think I've given all the things that I prepared for. And I think the great thing about that is there's not that much extra to it. It is just knowing that it will suck for a bit. And I'd say that if you've been doing heavy use for multiple years, then your timeline will probably be similar to mine, where the first 60 days you're going to have at least 15 days that are really tough, another 10 that were just kind of like boring days, and another 10 to 15 that you are feeling all the positive benefits and are loving it. Just know that once you get past that day 50, day 60 mark, right now I'm on day 62 as well. And I was telling Joel, I was like, should I wait till 90? But like, I do feel really good right now. I feel like I'm out of it. And it's partly because up until day 62 here, I had just 2 weeks of a little bit of use, and then I had 65 days before that. So I didn't have nearly as much of a baseline going into this one. I feel like probably more similar to how I would feel if I made it like 90 days or more from the other times, just because there's not as much residing in me. But I really had, actually, there is one other thing that I want to talk about, and that would be getting on purpose, because it's just it's kind of a pain in the ass conversation to have. Like, you just find your purpose, right? And get on purpose. And I've gone through phases of life where I feel like I'm on it, and then other times that I'm not. And it's such a hard question to answer, because you're like, what does that mean? Like, I have to start a charity, or I have to like give my money away. Like, I have to retire my parents, or like, do you have to have this philanthropic? Is that the right word? Philanthropic,
I think it's philanthropic.
type goal in order for this to like mean anything. And I realized that purpose is more of a feeling you get about what you're doing. Although you could be doing the actions that are in line with your purpose right now. So for instance, when I had my sales job selling knives, when these kids would start the job, no one was excited about selling knives week one. Like, they're 18. They're like, what are they, like, they don't even cook yet, right? They're just trying to sell them. And then after a couple weeks go by and they start to get those initial sales, and then they start to realize, man, there's a lot of people making a career out of this, and I can do this, and I can see myself constantly improving every week. And you can win a company trip, and I feel like I could actually do that. If I really like set my mind to it, I could actually do that. And it's more of an understanding of what you're creating is when you'll feel on purpose, even though that person was still selling knives week one, but they didn't feel like they were on purpose. So it's more, I do feel like your initial purpose in life, your initial extrinsic purpose will be whatever makes you money, and you having fun doing it, because it's very hard to do. Oh, I want to open a charity. You need money. Like, I want to retire my parents. With what? Money? Like, you're going to need money to do like whatever your next level goal is. So your initial like purpose, like your actions, will be what gets you money. But if you feel like I'm doing that, but I don't feel on purpose, I think it's either because you're doing something you don't enjoy, or you're not that confident in the path you're in. So as an entrepreneur, a lot of times I'm doing the motions, but like my YouTube videos aren't really doing that well. Like, my thumbnails, I'm like getting them better, but like they're not doing that much better. So like, and then my offer, I'm selling less and less of it. I'm like, as soon as you are like, you're doing all these things where you're like, I'm not sure if what I'm doing is right. And when you're in that phase, then it's hard to feel on purpose. So you have to really get through it and, consult with other people. And once you get on a path that you feel like I'm doing the actions that I'm doing right now will get me results, and I'm enjoying it, is when all of a sudden you'll feel like you're on purpose, even though you were doing the same thing as what you were doing before. And how that relates to addiction is that purpose is, as everyone knows, like that constant motivation. Like, I've been on a tear recently. Like I was telling Joel beforehand, we're like, it's like 11 p.m. I'm like, I can get like 3 more things done. And then like, as long as I get a good sleep still, and then I'll wake up and I'm just like, dude, like I'll just be going to bed. I'm like, dude, I'm just so excited to like hit the to-do list tomorrow. And I'm loving that I'm in that phase. And when you have that, then it's so much easier to not think about the addiction and for it not to be a thing. Otherwise, if you're like, I don't know what my purpose is, and like, damn, I miss weed, like it just makes it that much harder. So you're gonna have to, really get on purpose, but it's probably not this fancy charity that you need to start or this, next level thing. It could be doing exactly what you're doing right now,
Mm.
or making a slight career change, maybe moving to I know Taylor's on the call. She's a realtor, and like maybe she's like, I'm just sick of selling real estate in Colorado. Like that's it. All I just need to sell real estate somewhere else. Like it could just be like a slight pivot, but to just feel really great about what you're doing and really confident that what you're doing is going to achieve your financial goal. Because I really think your first purpose is to get finances in order.
Yeah, definitely, man. I did make that mistake. I chased the love of doing pursuit, and finances were at the back of my mind too, but now I'm really putting finances first, and it makes a big difference. Like same as you, wake up excited. The little problems are like, all right, this ain't a big deal. Like I got bigger things to worry about. And
I
so I
got to
think
get a girlfriend before I worry about this financial problem.
I would actually go, yeah, I would go reverse.
Yeah.
Definitely bad choice there, but
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's so key. Like sometimes the purpose is exactly what you're doing. Like I could say like my purpose is to do this in life, but my purpose right here is to sit with you and talk. And I'm a big fan of this guy Eckhart Tolle. He does The Power of Now. He wrote like the New Earth, and he talks about how you have an inner purpose and an outer purpose. And it's interesting because he isn't religious, but he uses a lot of religious texts and analogies. So the cross, for example, like in a sense, and I'm not Christian either, but Jesus represented the perfect harmony of your outer purpose, which is the horizontal, which is relationships, making money, your job, career, and then your inner purpose, which is finding out who you are, uh, letting go of different ego identities and stuff, and becoming more of a present being. And basically, Jesus just embodied that perfectly, and that's what the cross actually represents. That just perfect embodiment of inner and outer purpose. And so that's really, I think, our mission here too is to maybe simplify it, is that like you want to find your outer purpose, the thing that's going to get you money, that's going to allow you to have relationships, but then you also have to find the inner. So to me, it sounds like you have a really good balance right now. Like you're really working hard in the outer, and because you quit weed, now you're more in touch with the inner. So you're becoming more Christ-like in a sense, not in an egoic way, but you're just becoming more like more of the universe.
Let's clip that. And we'll end it right there.
You're like Jesus Christ.
And me nodding my head.
And that's the last podcast of Sobriety University.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So I think about that a lot too. Like guys, if you're not finding the success in the outer, if you're not, the money's not rolling in, like you can always go inwards. You can always do work on yourself, find out who you are, find out your likes, your dislikes, your passions, do therapy work if you have to, do trauma work. Preferably with someone that's trained, not your best friend, because that could get burdensome. But yeah, there's always work you can do, and this kind of comes full circle to what you're saying. Like you got to embrace the suck, and you had that mentality this time. You're like, I just it's gonna blow, and that's such a important lesson for life too. Even at 7 years clean, some days aren't always pleasant. Sometimes there's something, a difficult conversation I have to have with somebody that's close to me, and it's like, oh, this is going to be painful, and I think about it all day. Like it's never perfect, but those highs that you get from just living sober, living your purpose, like what Derek's been talking about, will outweigh the negatives by a ton, and it'll keep you going. Like I don't know if this is the best analogy, but you almost get addicted to life.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's way better than just cashing bowls every day, for sure. At least it was for me. So a question I have for you, So a question I have for you, Derek, is why did you seek out help this time? Because it sounds like you tried to go alone.
Yeah, something you were just saying there is why, which is don't talk to your friends that aren't therapists or whatever. So like I was joking with Joel because I was like, dude, I'm like playing Xbox live stream at night, and I'm like, yeah, I'm on day 27. It's been rough, and they're like, I'm high right now, man, and I'm like, how is it? They're like, oh, it's not fun. I'm like, I told them, like, don't tell me it's fun. Like, just like, don't tell me about it. And like, I'm just playing with two people, like smoking weed, like while I'm on Xbox with them. And like, that's fine. Like it works for them in life. They didn't have nearly as much of an addiction I have, But besides the point, I was still just like, they can't give me advice that I need. And like, they can say like, yeah, good job, like stick with it. Because I told them to, right? But even before then, like the initial times are like, yeah, if you want it, I'll give it to you. Like, so like I had to like start telling them like, if I ask for it, don't give it to me. Like, right. So I had friends
Okay.
like that. And yeah, I was going through a lot of calls, like day like 20 to 30 this last time. And every single one of them smokes weed. Like even one of my friends was like, yeah, dude, I took 10 months off. It was great. And then I got back on it and I realized that I really like weed. And I was like, that's not what I need to hear right now. So yeah. And
Thanks,
he's a
man.
musician, so I think it flows a little bit better with his
Right.
life. But he does it like every other night, right? Like, so I'm like, none of you like did it like I did it. Like none of you did it like 30 seconds after waking up to like like, oh, my good night hit Vindica, right? Like so like I just like none of you like that's the other thing. You have to like realize that other people's weed stories don't matter after a while. Like you want to take them all in. Like you're listening to us right now, you get some things out of this. There's going to be things that experiences that I had that you won't have. And you got to like really know that it is just at the end of the day, it's you and weed relationship, not my relationship. And then you are tagging on to my story. Like there's lots of benefit that you can get from listening to all these people and relating. But you'll find like nowadays I'll see people come up on my feed like 90 days weed clean, and I'll listen to them like, this doesn't offer me value anymore because I already know me and weed's relationship doesn't work.
Nice.
It would be like saying like, oh yeah, you dated that girl too. Like, like, yeah, I did as well. And like, this is the relationship that we had. And this is the relationship you had. I wouldn't be like, wait, you guys had fun? Wait, damn it. Like, I got to get back with her.
She beat me. What the hell?
Yeah.
God dang it.
Yeah. So it really is like that. But yeah, I sought out Joel because I was like, I just need someone that I can tell like, yeah, I'm going through this, and he's been through it before, and he's not going to be like high while I'm talking to him. And then we got to really talking, and Joel and I are on the same path with so many things, because like right here, he's like Eckhart Tolle. I'm like, yeah, I love Eckhart Tolle. Like you find that we're digesting so much of the same content. I'd tell him like, do you know this YouTuber? He's like, yeah, I do. And like, I'm like, are you reading $100 million leads right now? He's like, yeah, I am. And so like, we're really doing so many of the same things like outside of it. And I was like, these are conversations that I haven't been able to have with my homies because they're not online entrepreneurs like Joel is too. So there's just so much that we related to, and we didn't even talk about weed.
The last session was pure business. Yep, for sure. Yeah, that's awesome, man. And guys, just like Derek said, like you might not, if you reach out to someone, they might not have that connection like Derek and I have, and Derek and I have like very, very lucky to have met you, Derek, and to be connecting on so many things. I do think it's very important though to get some sort of mentor, some sort of advisor, and I still do this today in every aspect of my life. Besides, like I have people for recovery, people for relationships, people for business, and people for spirituality, and I can go to them because, again, just like you said, Derek, you don't want to burden your friends with your issues, because a lot of reason they're your friends is because like you don't talk about these deep issues all the time. Like that's why you're friends. Like you can just shoot the shit. And when you're like, dude, I just had this trauma come up, they're like, all right, man, like I just kind of wanted to hang out and talk about bullshit. Like this isn't really what I'm signed up for right now.
Even your best friends have a limit. Like especially if they're having a good day. Like I told you when I called my buddy, I was like, he was like so happy and positive. I'm like, I'm depressed for no reason because of weed, so I'm calling you. Like, you feel bad. So it definitely is good to have those outlets and just use it sparingly with your friends. Otherwise, I could tell from like one or two of the relationships that I'm like, this is kind of it's ruining their perception of me in a way too, that I'm like always using them in this way. Like they know I'm like calling them for like a depressed reason. Like I'm like, this is not how I want them to view me as well. So having the mentor as that outlet, because I got a lot of friends that I can call, and it still is, you feel weird, like, because you'll get off the call and then 2 hours later you'll feel good and you're like, oh damn, I want to tell them like, hey, by the way, I'm fine. Like ignore all of that. So yeah, definitely important to have a mentor.
Yes, absolutely. And guys, so We're transitioning here a bit to the close of this cast. There's some great ways to get mentors out there for free that you don't have to spend money on. This is what I did when I got sober. I reached out, I got into recovery support groups. I can't say the names per se by their name because they have privacy. So basically, what happens is people will like get clean. They'll say, "Hey, I'm a representation of the Derek Vidal community," right? And then they'll do something stupid. And then anyone that wanted to get into Derek Vidal's community is just like, all right, man, well, if I'm going to end up like this jackass, like, I'm not doing this. So it prevents people from, it prevents the possibility of people being deterred from the group and getting the help they need because someone wanted to, shout it from the rooftops and make, a bunch of YouTube videos on it. So, but however, we can talk about behind the scenes. So if that's something that you are interested in, this right here, this is a free recovery support guide. It's got like 30 different YouTube channels, support groups, forums, all things, the movies too that might inspire you, books, the books and movies you have to pay for. But well, actually, there's ways around that. But you guys can download this for sure. Just enter your email and then you can have a list of stuff. The one I can't say again, I can't say the name, but the one that has marijuana in it, that's the one that I went to, and I got a sponsor in it, and they really helped guide me through the initial stages of recovery. Uh, Going off that, a lot of people don't want that either. A lot of people can't relate to it. It's a lot of, there is some religious kind of themes in it, and that can deter people. So from there, like I'm definitely down to meet with you if that's something that you have an interest with. And just like Derek did, we can kind of meet. I can help you kind of identify some of those struggles that you're dealing with. We'll have weekly one-on-one calls. You can basically have 24/7 text access to me, and we can kind of identify those blocks in your life that are keeping you from quitting weed. And just like what you heard today from Derek, it can be something that's just so simple, right? Like sometimes you just need a very simple tweak, and then you'll be off to the races. So here is that link right there as well, and you can you book a call with me, and we'll hop on like a 45-minute Zoom, just like Derek and I, and we can meet each other and see where I can be of service to you. So that being said, Derek, can you kind of give us some updates on where you are in life, where you got going on the social media world?
Yeah, I'm doing an update on my course, a course that I've been selling for about 5 years. I've just sold it in all these different ways and repackaged the offers. And now I've done it so many times that I'm doing, what I consider my last course revision, and I'm getting everything set up. And I had read this book. This was partly why I was like so freaking jacked one night. I couldn't even like sleep because I was like, I know what I did wrong. Like my lead magnet's not good enough. So I'm redoing, I'm making a free course for people that have a business but want to just launch it, right? It's called my social launch formula, to just like get an Instagram following, get a Facebook following, get a TikTok following, get an email list, run a sale, like all in one campaign. It's like my own thing that I've been teaching for a long time, but it's so refined now. But I just haven't had the inner workings of like I told you, I like used to do an ad to a 1-hour webinar and sold it this way, and like I just haven't ever gotten the pieces right. And maybe I don't have it right this time, but I feel like I do, and I'm going to act on it that way. Yeah. So I'm just super excited about re-putting the pieces together of this program that I know that works for people that get in it. So that's the most important thing, but I just haven't figured out the exact way to sell it. And then I just had another new invention come in 2 weeks ago, and like 3 days ago, the first person outside of friends and family bought it. So I'm like, once that seal is broken, I'm like, okay, I got something here.
Is it the bar?
Yes.
Is it the
What's
bar?
that?
Is it the bar?
Yeah.
Nice.
It is the bar. Yeah. I don't know how much, like, I don't want to get into it or whatever.
Oh,
but
go
like,
ahead, dude. Go ahead. This is your.
Oh yeah. It's called a Bacne bar. It's a body acne bar of soap. I just kind of saw that it was a niche, and that I could probably take a chunk of that market. So
oh yeah,
it's a little far away right now, but I was like, whatever, I'm going to try this. So
I have scars from acne, so I totally support the Bacne bar, man. 100%. Like it's fucking sucks. So
I use it all the time. Like the fact that I'm like, I prefer it as my bar soap. So that's why I'm like, this I'm onto something like that. I use it like, because products are kind of like either people use them or they don't. Like there's not like, I like it, but I don't know if anyone else will. Like if I honestly use it, like it's actually, it's funny to use product proof that way, because my original invention, I'm like, yeah, it's a pain in the ass to use up, but we could probably sell it. But you can't, like, if you don't yourself use it as the inventor, then it won't sell to anyone. But yeah, so I've just got enough things that I feel like I'm catching fire on in business, and then I'm going to run a whole new ad campaign. And that's also another reason why I'm like, it's not fun to smoke weed while you're running Facebook ads to cold traffic at scale, because you're like, negative comments come in and you're like, wait, are they right? Like when you're high. So like, but otherwise, like there's a lot of things like that. Like the judge in my mind isn't nearly as activated when I'm high. So yeah, to play at this next level of entrepreneurship, it was not helpful. So I'm about to just launch a whole new ad campaign to that. And that's why I'm feeling like really excited about this right now, because I feel like it's going to work. And even if it doesn't, then, I'll keep going, but I'm going to act on this belief confidently. And that's where I'm at.
And that's what that is what entrepreneurship is. Just, you see a light in the tunnel, and then you head towards it. And sometimes it might be a fake light, but you reevaluate and keep going.
But run towards it, so figure it out.
Yeah, definitely. I'm the same boat as you, man. Like it's just so crazy how similar our lives are right now. And like, yeah, it's a great feeling once things catch fire, and it'll make everything worth it, guys. Like, whether entrepreneurship is your thing or not, but when you find that thing in life that you can wake up for and be happy for and get excited about and see results, it'll be just so worth all the pain, worth all the days of misery from quitting weed, or even from just being sober, or any trauma that you've had in the past. It'll just be all worth it. So definitely don't give up on that. Derek, where can people find you?
So I believe it's streaming from my YouTube channel too, but just my name, Derek Vidal, on YouTube. I'm at Social Bamboo with an underscore at the end on Instagram. Feel free to DM me on there, and you can just always check my bio link for whatever I've got going on Instagram.
Nice. And for myself, you can obviously Sobriety University do a lot of addiction and recovery related content. We're gonna do a lot of content here on not just marijuana, but relationships, codependency. We're gonna have some different perspectives from the male and the female dynamics, right? Because I think each gender has a different experience when it comes to addiction or relationships, and so really going to be diving into that. We have a community launching very soon. It's going to be called, obviously, the Sobriety University community, and it's going to be, this round is going to be weed focused. So first off, Derek, would love to have you be a part of that community, and I'll be announcing more about it, but we're going to be doing weekly workshops. We're going to, it'll be a place where you can come and meet other people that are on the path of quitting. You can, be of service to others as well on the journey. I can tell you that something that has really kept me sober is being able to share what I've learned with others. There's a point where I'm like, like I got to a point where I felt like I would say I mastered myself to a degree. And I'm like, well, like, this is kind of lonely. Like, what am I going to do? Just run around like with all my little knowledge in my head? Like, no, it's like about sharing it and being of service to others. And so that's also a great tip to stay sober, guys. Like, get out, do a volunteer activity, do something for your community, do something where you get out of your own head and your own stuff. And I promise, like, it might be enough to get you 3 more days without weed. And then you got to do it again. But other than that, guys, yeah, thank you so much, Derek, for coming on. This was an awesome cast, and it was nice to be with somebody that's a professional in the podcast world. You were on your shit. I was like, damn.
Sweet, dude. Glad I could provide. Yeah, I felt like it went great. I've been running the things through my head for this week leading up to this, but really I've wanted to do this episode for like 3 or 4 years now, because like the first time that I was like, I'm quitting, I'm like, oh, at the end of this, I'm going to do a podcast on it. But I was like, I could never get to the end where I was like, I didn't make it, so I can't do the podcast on it. So I was, excited to get to this point where I could do it. So yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Awesome. Well, and thank you guys so much for everyone who tuned in. We have one quick comment. That's the hard part of the mental part of it. Can't seem to get past it. Recovery member, if you're still on, feel free to reach any of us. We'd be happy to talk to you and, give you some tips and stuff. And you're not alone, brother. That's the most important thing here. You're not alone. So with that, guys, we're going to cut it for the night, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.
See ya.